Hey, it's Rebecca Rutherford. Welcome to the What in the Well podcast. My friend Angie Huber and I are here to provide an entertaining and relatable perspective on well-being. If you want to shift your mindset and make incremental progress toward your work and home life goals, you are in the right place.
Well, hey,
Rebecca.
Angie. Hi.
Hi. Good to see you again.
Same. How are you?
I'm well.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good.
I believe so.
I believe. Yeah. And so it will be.
This topic today around goodbye to perfection, hello, good enough. I mean, it's something for me I'm even today, right? I'm battling with just letting go of it, anything needing to be perfect and just keep making progress.
I am big time struggling with that today because my allergies are in high gear right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's spring allergy season. My brain is foggy. Spring break just ended. It was a little bit of a whirlwind. I called it spring broke. It was like spring broke for us sometimes.
Yeah, it's not a break. Who's it a break? Who's it a break for? I was thinking about that today. Like this was not break. I was off, but there was no break.
No, it was spring broke. My husband had surgery. My kids
that's right.
were like just like a lot of antsiness and sidewaysness. And then my son, like for 24 hours, had a flu. I don't know. It just came out of nowhere and went away just as fast as it did. So, and then, so today, talking about, not being perfect, I'm trying to work on some writing for one of my clients, and I just can't, I don't have the brain for it.
Yeah.
I have nothing good to give them right now. If I were to send over this document, it would not be my best. And, I am a perfectionist. I don't like to reveal my work until it's grand. So this is a constant struggle for me. What is good enough?
What is good enough? And how do you do good enough? Press on and keep iterating.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When you said I am a perfectionist, what does that mean to you? So how do you define perfection, just even in your own terms?
Yeah. So for me, when I think about perfectionism and how it shows up in my life, it is, when I get an idea, which I get ideas too much, I have too many ideas. This is my first macro problem. I have all these ideas. And then I don't think about the system or the process, how James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits, like fall in love with the system and not the goal. Well, I'm not in love with the system a lot of the times. I'm in love with the final product. In my head, I'm like already there, and I've created this big, grand, amazing end product. And so unless that thing starts to take shape over time, I become disappointed. So perfectionism is meeting my own expectations and standards of what the final product will look like. So, and it's not always even flawless. Sometimes I'm like, there is an element of flawlessness in terms of, my own expectations, but it's not maybe by other people's expectations flawless. I don't know. How about you?
Oh man, you're hitting on so many things that I think perfectionism does, right? Yeah. It's fallen in, like you said, you're celebrating the end result versus the journey. And really truly enjoying the journey and the process to get there. For me, perfectionism is like 100%. It's like, and by definition, when we look up perfectionism, it says freedom from fault or defect, flawlessness, the quality or state of being saintly. That almost made me laugh. Like when I read that, I got a little when I was reading the definition, the quality of state of being saintly, that actually gives me like heart palpitations in my heart and my chest, because I'm like, who can achieve that?
Well,
it's not achievable. And flawlessness?
No.
Flawlessness. Oof. Even. Right. Like, right? Like,
I don't like
that. I mean, yeah, what is that?
Well, don't you? Okay, I mean, unless you're a narcissist, doesn't it take someone else to declare you a saint too? I mean, isn't that then intertwining other people's opinions about you that you're perfect?
Well, and
Can,
then that
can I
gets to
dub thee? Can I dub thee a saint? I don't think so.
well, and what you're hitting on is like, what's the root
Yeah.
of perfectionism? And it's the fear of judgment or disapproval from others.
Ugh.
Oh,
Ugh.
yeah, right? The whole thing. So now if you're trying to be saintly, that's based on somebody's other, like somebody else's perception of you, whether they're judging you to be perfect or not. Who wants that?
Nobody. Absolutely no. So if I can't even meet my own expectations, I'm sure as heck not going to meet somebody else's. So,
And I don't want to.
oh no.
I don't want to meet anybody else's expectations.
No. I don't even want to be accountable to that at
Yeah.
all. That's just a setup for a lot of disappointment for a lot of people.
So when we think about and we unpack perfectionism here today, so our topic here today is how do we say goodbye to perfection and perfectionism and hello to good enough,
Yeah.
hello to the process,
Mhm.
hello to progress. You know, there's that great saying that we hear all the time, progress, not perfection. But how do we truly embody it from a mindset, a belief? How do we redefine what good enough and progress looks like in our actions?
Mhm.
And so what do we need to let go of here? What for you, for me, like what do you need to let go of perfectionism for within yourself?
Well, I think the core word that I heard in that definition was fear.
Mm,
I think underneath everything else, I always believe that at the root, we function from two different postures, and one is fear and one is love.
yep.
So if we love the process, if we love the end goal, we're going to function very differently than if we're coming from a place of fear. And so for me, if you can get to that root, then I think a different process for achieving or going through the motions of trying to achieve a goal or whatever it is that you're doing, I think that whole process can be a lot less painful.
How does perfectionism show up for you? How do you know it's rearing its head?
Well, I think when the joy gets sucked out of something, that's when I know that I am applying too much pressure to it. You know, if I and I find myself doing this a lot, like I get wrapped up in the end goal and the idea, and I don't slow down and I don't savor the progress. I just consistently lock into the end goal and it sucks the joy out of it.
I am so there right now. You know, I've shared that I started a new role, I
Yeah.
guess about 6 weeks ago, and that's exactly where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm literally it has sucked the joy out of me. I am
Sure.
on the hamster wheel, just constantly focused on the destination.
Sure. Well,
And I'm missing everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
My creativity is zapped, my energy is zapped, my ability to think clearly is zapped, my sleep is zapped, my health is like everything is zapped for me right now
Yeah.
because I'm focused on
Right.
the goal.
Well, nothing sucks the joy out of something than a really hard deadline and a bunch of other people who are depending on you, right? Which I'm sure is the case in your job.
Yeah, but there's still the letting go here. There's still progress over perfection. I've done really hard things before, right? I've had really tough things where people are depending on me with high pressure stakes, and I was able to get myself out of the mode of perfection. I've realized this weekend I spent a lot of time like in that, like I am in it. The vortex has like, as soon as you said sucked the joy out of you, that's what I felt like. I could imagine like I've like sucked in like the vacuum and it's got me. It literally has its perfection, has its hold on me right now. It's winning.
Yeah.
It's literally winning. And I am not actually winning.
You know how you talked a few episodes ago about your saboteur being Slimer?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like how in Ghostbusters, they have that that tool, that ghost pack. Well, I don't know what it's called.
Yes.
In a minute.
Yes.
But like the thing that sucks the ghost
Oh
out.
yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need a ghost sucker.
Yeah. Somebody who's the Ghostbuster though, like that has sucked me in, because they've taken their little Ghostbuster machine and they have like captured me, and I'm now stuck in this little box.
Yeah. You have to be your own Ghostbuster, Angie.
Oh
You do.
man.
Strap on the pack.
I'm out of that's exactly right. But and I think I don't know that I would have identified until we started talking. I don't know that I would have identified it as perfectionism has its hold on me.
Yeah.
But I think it is, and there's a lot of wrapped up in fear. Some fears here. Fear of failing, fear of not delivering on time, fear of letting the team down, fear of all the things. Yeah, and I don't know that I'm trying to be saintly, but I'm like, or not even flawlessness, but it is maybe that disapproval.
Yeah.
The roots again, what like, why does perfectionism exist? And if you peel back that onion, if it's the fear of something, fear of failure, fear of disapproval from yourself, of others, I mean, that's what's here. That's the energy that's literally here.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you first.
So how do we combat this, right? What's it start with? So if I think if anybody else is listening has something where you've been sucked, the perfectionism has got a hold of you, and you're stuck, or you're not able to be your best self, or you're living in fear over love, where do you get started? So how do you start to come out of these moments?
Well, so for me, it feels like I'm thinking about goals. I'm thinking about how a lot of times my perfectionism kicks in when I have a goal I want to accomplish. And when I coach other people in accomplishing their goals, it's the same exercise that I use. That's how I know it actually kind of works. So but it's hard when you're in your own head. I'm not feeling their fears. I can empathize with them, but
that's right.
I'm spinning up my own. But
so how do you empathize with yourself?
Yeah. So I have to kind of get my goals documented and look at them very objectively, and then break them down into parts where I can start to look at them in terms of what is the next right thing to do, and how does that thing give me feedback as to whether or not I'm even going in the right direction. Because if I get so locked in on that end goal, I might miss the opportunity to pivot when something better might come up, or if I can, slow down and actually enjoy the process of accomplishing my goal. So a lot of it is not looking at the end goal, locking in so tightly that I am not able to start getting feedback along the way to validate that what I'm trying to accomplish is even the right thing. And then in that process, I kind of lose the need to be perfect and kind of center my actions on progress.
So what's the mindset that you're adopting there?
Well, it's much more of a growth mindset than a fixed mindset. If you draw on our friend Carol Dweck, who, is the mother of growth mindset in her book about that. And, how typically when we have such a fixed mindset on, what that end goal is supposed to look like, or what our life is supposed to look like on a really macro level, it's really hard to feel joy because you're constantly striving something. Yeah. You've got this whole supposed to be soundtrack going through your head. And that really, that can suck the joy out too, quite a bit.
That's the shoulding. You're getting into the shoulding. I should, the shoulds, and perfectionism loves that. Loves the shoulding.
So how do you get past it? What is your approach?
It's recognizing it first.
Yeah.
So I need to recognize it and call it out. Like Slimer's here, right? Or give it a name. Like, okay, I'm in this, I'm in perfectionism. Perfectionism has its hold on me. So number one, I need to acknowledge it and recognize it.
Yeah.
Call it out. And most of the time then ask myself, am I in fear or am I in love
Mhm.
in this moment? And if I'm in fear, okay, how do I choose love? What would that look like?
Mhm.
So this weekend, actually, like real time, I was like, I'm in fear. I recognize it. I called it out. I'm like, okay, I need to pause for a moment and get back into love.
Mhm.
So then I did literally was like called WTF. Not what the, you know what, it's what's the focus?
Ooh, I like
WTF.
that.
So like, what's the focus? And get back to your point, the process
Yeah.
and the journey
Yeah.
and the what's the one, it's that how do you eat an elephant? And you mentioned this, one bite at a time.
Mhm.
What's the, you hear so many times people give you the advice of don't worry about running the marathon, don't worry about the big thing, just what's the one thing, what's the next step, what's the first step. I've
Right.
done this over and over again, and you would think that it would go away, but now
Right.
here I am doing a new brave thing, a new uncomfortable thing, and here's all spun up again, right? So then I have to go acknowledge it, call it out, and then create a plan.
Yeah.
What's the thing? What's the one or two things this week that's the most important to move towards? And how do I get back to love and loving the process,
Mhm. Do
not the
you,
goal, not the destination?
do you find yourself also as part of that, like time boxing it? Because I know a lot of people struggle too with this, like, there's no end date to it. So, there's this antsiness that you get in your body where you're like, am I ever going to make progress? So it's like, do you employ a time boxing type strategy around it?
You mean like as far as my
You're
um
in your process. Are you like, okay, if I'm focused on accomplishing this bigger goal and I'm breaking it down into parts,
yeah.
and I need to do this part, or like I want to do parts every 2 weeks and then check in with myself, and then
Yeah.
another 2 weeks and check in myself. Is that part of your process?
Yeah, breaking it down into very much bite-sized pieces on
Yeah,
a weekly basis is. So when I said, okay, what's the focus for this week? Like I literally had to write out like what's the main thing this week
right.
that will, and so that's what came up, like the top 3 things I need to do. Okay, that's what I need to do. And then this morning when I was doing my, my gratitude journal and my I am statements and my top 3 focuses for today, it was
Mhm.
like, okay, what's the 3 things today
Mhm.
and how am I going to create space for that? What am I saying no to? What meetings can I decline so I can make space for that?
The most important thing. Yeah,
And again, look at, I'm not even talking about the goal now, right? I'm talking about the process. I'm in the process. I'm finding joy and love in the process
right. Yeah,
versus the joy and love in the destination.
right. Absolutely.
Because to your point, man, if you just focus on the goal and you're driving towards that, you're not joyful. So we've talked about how it sucks literally the life out of us,
Yeah.
and you're missing out massive opportunities to learn. So like Rebecca, what comes up for me is I almost want to challenge you, like when you're like, I can't give this, proposal or what you're working on for your client, like you have nothing. I'm like, what if you actually sent it as a, hey, here's a P20 draft?
Oh, it's happening. I'm going to do
Yeah.
that because I've
And
realized
like,
as time has ticked on, I'm getting that angst in my body, and I'm feeling like that's starting to cloud my already foggy head a little bit more. So I have to show something and get feedback at this point,
yeah,
or else I'm just going to sit here and spin, and it's not going to be good for anybody.
right.
Not
What
going to
are we
produce a better
waiting?
result.
No. And what does perfection love about that?
What does perfection love about it?
Yeah, perfection just wants you to stay comfortable and spinning and keep you
Right,
stuck, right? The
right,
fear,
right. Yeah, it's an illusion.
it's an illusion.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if there is such thing as perfect.
No, there's not. So, we're actually, as humans, we're born imperfect.
Right.
Like we are imperfect beings. So how could perfect actually exist?
Not a thing.
Maybe perfect in an element, but as a whole,
Yeah.
like, does one human do literally every single thing in their life perfectly? So even if you're excelling in one component and you are doing it flawlessly and almost saint-like, there's probably another element, right, that may not be. And so as a whole,
Mhm.
how do we even let go of the expectation of perfection and start celebrating
Mhm.
imperfection?
One
I
of my
love being imperfect.
Oh, I as much as I like lock into my ideas and want, to accomplish them the way I envision them in my head, my favorite, most humorous parts of my life are when I fail hard. When I when I do something that is just so ridiculous that I can actually laugh at it and know that I got great value out of it not being perfect because it was funny instead.
And I would venture to say that there's always something to learn, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Always. Even when you're have the worst failure, there's always something to learn. A mindset that the kids and I talk about all the time is you're either winning or you're learning. Like,
Yeah.
what if we just eliminated this whole idea of failing?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm instilling that with them. Now I need to take my own medicine, right? Apply it to
Right.
myself and what I'm experiencing in real time right now. Of this is like check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? Like, okay, Angie, if there's no failing in this new role, in this new work, what am I learning and where are we celebrating progress?
Right. I
And
think
there's some great wins that have happened
yeah.
even in the last 6 weeks to celebrate.
I think it's Marie Forleo who says, I either win or learn, but I never lose.
That's right.
I always
Either
think too, like,
win or learn, but I never lose. And what if that's the mindset here? What if the key learning is, when you recognize that you're in a perfectionistic mindset or way of being,
Mhm.
how do you acknowledge it and then reset? Because it's a reset.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at failure as feedback again, back to putting a little bit incremental work out into the world or just nudging something forward. And every time I do that and I either get a good or bad response from a person or, the universe or myself, if I just don't feel good about it, it's not a failure as much as it's just feedback. It's just a nudge in the right direction.
And so what would that look like if you applied it to this client
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah. I mean, it would just look like me sending what I've got so far to him and saying, hey, bud, like I just want to make sure I'm going in the right direction before
Initial reaction.
yeah, exactly. I just give me a little feedback here. Am I even in the ballpark? And if not, what stadium you want me to go to?
And you're also making progress. And
Yeah.
you're taking the bite out like one little bite at a time.
Right.
And you're back on the journey.
Right.
You're
Exactly.
in the
And
journey.
it doesn't suck anymore because I'm not
And it doesn't
doing.
suck anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What's our key things here, Rebecca? What are you learning? What are we taking away?
Well, we talked about hello to good enough, right? So I think it's taking the time and asking yourself that question, like, what does good enough look like for now? And how can I celebrate good enough? And knowing that the idea is that things will never be perfect the way that you envision them in your mind, but that progress can be enjoyable if you let it. And if you start to feel like it's becoming angsty, then that's an indicator that the system isn't working for you or you're not working in a system and that you need to reset and rethink that question. What does good enough look like?
Yeah. How do you define good enough and progress? And truly, as you were saying that, it's where the love
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
I don't know how or why, but that's where the love is, because you're letting go of the fear.
Yeah.
And you're doing things with and for others? And is that where the love is generated? The kindness to yourself?
Yeah.
Working on something that's important to you?
I don't know if we've talked about this before, but sometimes I play what sounds like a not that fun game with myself, though, where I get really afraid of something and I will write down what's the worst thing that can happen. And I just keep writing it until I get to the point where I'm like, the worst thing that can happen is so survivable that I'm clearly making a bigger deal out of this thing than it needs to be.
Yesterday, my daughter had a violin recital. Okay. So she's been taking lessons. She just started out less than a year ago, and she played 2 songs in this recital, and she gets horrible anxiety when she needs to get up in front of people. So starting, this was Sunday afternoon. So starting Saturday afternoon, her anxiety started worry. She was so scared, almost to the point of vomiting yesterday before the recital. I mean, she was locked in, and this is her process that she does. She gets so, and her and I started working through, like, what's the worst thing? Let's talk about it. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? She's like, I mess up. Okay, so what? So you mess up. What's the worst thing from that? And we just kept going and going. And I said, we can keep doing that. Or what if we focus on what could go right? Like, what if you shifted the energy? Because again, one's fear-based, right? One's love-based. Like, what would actually go right here? And I said, and no one else is paying it. They're all here for their kids, right? No one's actually paying attention to you except for me.
Right.
And I'm just here no matter what. Doesn't matter to me what happens. I'm here celebrating that you're getting up there and you're playing and showing the progress that you made.
Right.
She got up there and she did beautifully. It was awesome. And then she came down, and then you could see, how when you do something really brave and scary, it's like the release.
Yeah.
Oh, I just loved watching her. I was like, in the release. But she held on tight to me for like 10 minutes afterwards because she was so scared.
Yeah. Well, what do you think that will do for her the next time she has to do something brave like that, though?
I don't know. She has gotten herself worked up enough where she does vomit. Like, her body just and so little by little, she's still doing brave things.
Yeah.
This time I'm celebrating that she actually didn't vomit.
Yeah. That's good.
But it's good. It's building up that resistance of, we can do scary things.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are doing scary things. And again, it's that whole mindset of, I had no pressure on her that she had to deliver perfectly. It was, so what? You mess up, you're gonna learn, right? It's that whole concept of, you're winning or you're learning. And 8 months ago, you've never touched a violin in your life. You're now producing 2 songs. Right? Like, come on now. This is what we're celebrating. It's not about the goal. It's not about the goal. It was about the journey and how far she's come in such a long time, like in such a short amount of time.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's about the journey. The love was in the journey. I was smiling the whole time, just loving the process that she's been. It didn't matter about the outcome so much.
That's so rewarding, and such a great example that you can reflect back to yourself too, when you need that, when you're feeling scared and when you need to feel brave to try something.
Which is almost every day these days, right? Remind myself, like, how do I take my own advice? What's the worst thing that's going to happen here?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's it. So you can
How do I choose love?
Boom.
Choose love and the process.
Right.
Good. Any other last? There was one, a gentleman I work with, and he has the best saying that, that I use sometimes when I find myself like in the moment, and he calls it G.E.P.O, and it's good enough, press on. So when you find yourself, or when I find myself spiraling, I'm like, oh, this is a G.E.P.O moment. This is good enough.
Yeah.
Press on, get it out the door, move on, take a little bit of action, make a progress, take one step, right? And get it out the door and press on and pick up the thing later.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've talked about this in a previous episode too, is that, sometimes you got these big tasks you got to do that's going to take hours, and we have just enough time to maybe take a step today and then a step the next day.
Mhm.
And by doing that, you're literally chewing away at perfectionism. Perfectionism does not like movement or
Right.
action
No.
or progress, right? So even just by taking a tiny little step forward, you're actually dissipating the perfectionism.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfectionism loves the end game, and not every day is an end game day.
Most days, the whole thing isn't an end game.
There is no end game.
There's no end game, right? The whole thing about life is a journey.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And talk about fears. I would say one of my biggest fears is that I would look back on my life and feel like I made it suck because I didn't enjoy the process. I have accomplished I accomplished some pretty awesome things, but in the days in between all of that, I was joyless. And that's probably my biggest fear in this whole thing, is like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and go, man, if I would have just let go, if I just would have gone with the flow.
Ride the wave.
Yeah.
Choose love. Enjoy the process. Take little bitty steps.
Absolutely. That's it.
Well, Rebecca, you and I both have some homework. It sounds like I'm going to hold you accountable. Check in on how you did with your client. I need to hold myself accountable this week of choosing love and the process and the work that I'm setting out to do with the WTF. What's the focus?
I'm going to WTF and G.E.P.O myself all over the place today. I am. It's going to be acronym.
On that note, everyone, I want you to choose one thing. What's one thing in your life where your perfectionism's getting in your way? Choose one thing and G.E.P.O it and WTF it.
Exactly. Hello, good enough.
Hello, good enough.
And on that note, goodbye.
On that note, goodbye.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of What in the Well. Be sure to review, rate, and subscribe to our podcast. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover, share it in the comments. Stay well until we meet again.